Welcome to Black Belt Beauty Radio, a podcast fueled by a passion to support your journey in developing your most beautiful and optimal performance in life. Each episode is driven with the intention to elevate your mind. When we elevate our mind, we elevate our life. So get ready. It's time to rise. DEJA, this is a really exciting, special conversation that I'm just so looking forward to having with you because, well, first of all, I've had authors on the podcast. I've never had a poet. Yeah. And poetry is something that's so dear to my heart, for a couple of reasons. One, I shared with you that I'm writing my first poetry book. But, I've been writing for the majority of my life. I'm in the fourth decade of my life. And I didn't even know when I was younger that I was writing poetry, because I think, you grow up and when you hear about poetry, especially in like the earlier years, it's like, oh, it has to rhyme, right? So it's poetry. But then, I would realize later, like, no, that's not the case. And in fact, I look back at, all of this writing that I have, and I'm like, my goodness, you were throwing down some poetry at a very young age.
I love it. I love it.
I mean, so, I found you on Instagram, and you actually, I want to, hold on. So, okay. The first, I'm going to actually, give me 1 second.
No, do your thing.
So I found you on Instagram, and it was, a piece that I think the profile writers had shared. I go to your profile and I'm like, oh my goodness, I love her writing. And there was this post, and it's actually, it's the caption that reeled me in. Yeah. It's a picture of like a cappuccino or something. And the caption says, our capacity to love is marked by our capacity to be alone. And I was like, holy shit, she gets it. So this is a long intro. I'm almost kind of through it, but the reason why that's my starting point is because, I obviously took deeper dives into your work. I bought your book, and I was like, wow, I literally have chills on my body right now. I was
gosh.
It's so special. It's so real.
Yeah, it really is. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, you are such a profound artist. And you in your book, your chapters, which we're going to go through that. I mean, the things that you write about are deep and meaningful. And what I love so much, there's so many, reasons why I love your writing specifically, but your wisdom is very inspiring, honest, and empowering. And as an empowerment and self-mastery coach, someone who's always talking about the importance of self-love, self-trust, and things that actually weave into your writing, you're speaking to my core. So girl, long intro to say, I am so excited to be connected with you and to have this conversation with you.
Me too. Thank you so much. It's actually so funny that you brought up that post, because so we can get into this later or whenever in due time, but I'm currently working on my next book. So the entire premise of that book is that sentence: our capacity to love is based on our capacity to be alone. That's like the whole premise of the book, pretty much. So it's so funny incredible. That is what stood out to you, because when I was pitching the second book, I had to sit back for a second and be like, okay, like God, like what is like the number one lesson that you have given me in life? Like what's the number one message that you want me to share? And immediately that's what came into my head. So it's a lot, there's a lot that goes into that simple sentence, but 100% it's huge.
Well, that's the fun part about being a writer too. I mean, I love your thoughts on this, but like when you can take a very, like an abyss of a subject, of a topic, and you can sculpt it into a very crispy, that's my term, like a crispy
I like that.
sentence, like, right? It's
yeah, I like that.
I'm just like, because I know the depth of what you're saying. And I do want to, tease that out a bit with you. It sounds so simple and kind of small and short, but holy shit, that it's like you're saying, there's a whole book that you can write from that. So I mean,
I just got
let's
chills
say,
too.
did you? And I
Yeah,
love
I
it. Yeah,
really
it's so
did.
aligned that I love that that would be the first place that we would start, because, and
Right.
that your whole next book is about that, because I mean, that just, I call it like kisses from the universe, you know, it's just like
Mhm.
affirmation, you know. Let's
Exactly.
go, let's dive back a little bit, because I'm so curious about you, period. You know, and I love that you're in your 20s. This is really, really important to me as a woman in my 40s, right? 43, because from what I know now, the knowledge that you have, the wisdom that you have in this specific decade, the 20s are very tumultuous.
Mhm.
They're difficult, man.
Oh
I
my
have
gosh,
journals
yeah.
that,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yep, still going through it. Yeah, absolutely. Some of the
You're
hardest
going
years of
through,
my life thus far. Yeah, absolutely.
but you're so anchored. And I say this like, I don't hand this stuff out. You know what I mean? This is
Mhm.
very, very, I feel this very deeply with you. You, it's not about you having it all figured out, but you have figured out certain, like that sentence, certain things, certain anchors that I
Mhm.
believe are so important to own. And especially, let's just dive into one of your seasons,
Mhm.
that's in Ebb and Flow, which is
Okay.
one of my core subjects to talk about, self-love, because that
Mhm.
sentence, right, it's all about self-love.
It's
How did
huge.
you get there?
Oh man, it was a long process. So I guess in terms of self-love, it was piece by piece. So really for me, it wasn't, and still it ebbs and flows. And so that's why like the whole premise of my book is ebb and flow, because just referencing back to what you just said, that I have so many like anchors of wisdom. At the same time, like being in my 20s, I'll know this wisdom, but I still find myself questioning or having fear or having anxiety over certain things, or I'll have seasons where I don't feel like I love myself as much. So that ebb and flow process, it still is definitely going on and it'll probably always go on.
Mhm.
Um, but with self-love, I think one of the biggest things was making a decision. And that is why I came to that conclusion of self-love. Our capacity to love is our capacity to be alone, because I had to finally choose to be alone for the first time in my life. I was a serial monogamist, as they say. And the thing is, I'm a lover, you know, I really am. I'm a water sign, I'm Cancer through and through. I'm very sensitive. That's just who I am. And I love that about myself. But I found that I was using other people as a crutch in my life to really fulfill certain needs, where I got to a point and I was realizing, you know, these people, it's just like this revolving door and I'm not happy with anyone,
Mhm.
and I'm hurting people in the process too. And so I had to take a step back and think about, well, can I be alone? Do I have the capacity to be alone right now? And you know, I did and I have been, but it was definitely a journey. It was a whole journey of self-love, as you could probably see through that season as well. Takes twists and
Yeah.
turns.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I love it. And I, you know, in my own life, it would be, you know, I'm very introverted. I don't like labels, but it's kind of like the fast track to get to the point. Just to say, like, I really love my solitude. I love to spend time with myself. And that's actually how I recharge. Being a very deep thinker and deep
Mhm.
feeler, I need that
Mhm.
time to connect with self, because self is its own thing, right? And
Exactly.
that comes out a lot in your writing. And you know, for me it was similar in the way of like, I always had, you know, a partner, I always had a boyfriend, and then it hit my 30s, and then there was just like the whole decade basically was just like, you know, not the case. It was really me, and it was me always choosing. It wasn't like I couldn't, it was just you know, you're not, you it's like you said, you decided, you make the choice. And
Mhm.
so you trade, you know, potential for just your solitude and that honesty and that time with yourself, right? And that's
Mhm.
so it sounds like that's what essentially brought you into this beautiful, powerful wisdom that you have, and that you're unpacking through, you know, your heart expression is what I call it. You're not, you're writing.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know what's so funny is that, so I've written my entire life since I was a little girl. I've always loved to write, but I never actually invested like time and energy into it. It was more so something I was like, "Oh yeah, I like to write. Oh yeah, I'm, you know, I'm talented at writing." And deep down, I really loved it. But that space in my life that I now have for writing, I gave that instead to other people. And so when I finally decided to really hold that space for myself, that's literally when I started Ebb and Flow, my Instagram, my book, my writing, like all of these things that are so authentically me started to come to fruition because I was holding that space for myself and loving myself rather than just like pulling people in, anybody that would fill the space instead.
I
And that was
love
just
that.
transformational. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think a lot of my self-love journey was realizing that in order to hold space for myself, sometimes that means that I have to eliminate the things that aren't serving me and the
Mhm.
things that I'm using to fill a spot rather than actually wanting them there. There's a difference between wanting someone and needing someone. And I think a lot of the people in my life, I needed them rather than wanting them there. And so kind of reframing my perspective on what I wanted for myself really led me to that next level of self-love and discovering my art and sharing my art.
I love that so much. And I want to ask you, was journaling your kind of outlet of writing, or was it? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. So I actually went through like long period of my life though where I didn't really journal at all. So
Mhm.
I really put my love for writing on the back burner for
Mhm.
probably a decade of my life, from when I was probably about 12 to 22. I didn't write at all because my mind was so focused on other things during that time period.
Mhm.
But once I kind of refocused myself, yeah, journaling, now I journal every single morning. I can't, like, if I go a day without journaling, I'm like, oh, I have so many thoughts. I need to get them on a paper. I like freaking out. But yeah,
Yeah, I
it
feel
definitely
that so
helps.
hard. No, and
Yeah.
I love that because, you know, because journaling has been I mean, there's different kind of avenues now that I write, but that was the entry point. And I'm the same as you.
Hmm.
Like every morning, it's me and my journal and meditation, and all that, but the journaling especially. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. Again, I just love where you are in your life specifically, because I feel like if more women, if more girls, like more individuals, period, at this
Hmm.
decade can start to hone in on the things that you've really come to, and these like wisdom pieces that you're anchored in, it just sets you up more powerfully to move through your life from an empowered. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. So
Yes.
I I have a guided journal, and I'll show you offline. So I'm really looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this. So I talk about journaling a lot, right? And because
Mhm.
it's really what I have found. People always want to ask me about how to develop more self-confidence, how to live from your most authentic self, how do you generate more self-love, all of this, right? And you know, doing the work of like really diving in and going, okay, how did you really get here? Well, the MVP, the most valuable player in this game for me, has been my journal, because it's not just, just like scribbling things. What it is it's a sacred portal. This is just my
Mm.
verbiage on it. Sacred portal for me to dive into my mind and my heart, for me to connect with myself. And I say this often, but I'm like, how do you cultivate a loving, healthy, loyal, trustworthy relationship with anybody? Like
Mhm.
anybody. You have to invest time to spend like with them specifically in exchange. And I think the misconception is like, because your name, you're in your body, your family, like you have this connection with self. No, you don't.
So true.
I want,
Absolutely.
can you talk about that from your perspective, your journey?
Absolutely. It's funny. I have one moment in my life that was really transformational when it came to journaling, and that was unpacking a lot of the trauma that happened in my childhood. It was like the trauma that I had or the things that I went through. It was very, I knew about it consciously. It's not like I had like blacked it out of my mind by any means, but I have this belief that when you put it onto paper and you journal it, one, it becomes real because the words, you're seeing it right there. It's almost like it's coming up all again and you're having to feel it all again. But also it's a release. It's literally you are physically taking energy out of your body. And so it feels like this huge release. So I did that for the first time and I ended up writing, I'm not kidding you, like 26 pages. It was insane. And that was my first experience where I really realized, okay, wow, like journaling is going to be really transformational if I just keep putting my mind to this and doing it in a way where it doesn't feel like a chore either, making it something that I want to do. This is fun to do. And I love to write anyway. So a after that experience, I started journaling almost every single day. And it's so funny because when I look at my self-growth and I look at how much I journal, it's like straight line, it's absolutely the same thing. And I think when we journal, we have this opportunity to just really be present. And honestly, that's something that I need to work on, is being present. I think my mind is always in a million different places, but when I journal, it's this like first time of me really just sitting down, and I'm not paying attention to anything else. I'm physically using my hands, I'm using my mind, my spirit, my body. And the way I journal is typically through prayer or talking to the universe, my creator, God, whatever you want to call it. It's a spiritual experience for me. And so that is just, it's really been my anchor of all. And most of what I write on Ebb and Flow, it actually comes out first in my journal. So I'll be writing, and then I'll write something like, wait, that's something I need to share. And it's even like now that this is such a crazy question too, because I'm finding so many parallels. But the reason why I actually started Ebb and Flow was because one night I was journaling. So I was about to move to New York, and it was like my last 3 pages left in my journal. So I was like, I really want this to be like my final conclusion. Like, I really want to sum up all of the things that I've really learned this year. And so I wrote it out. And after I was finished, I read through it and I was like, wow, this is some really powerful stuff. And these are some really like golden nuggets of truth. And so I went over to my roommate and I was like, hey, can I just like share this with you? I would love to read this to you. I feel like this is really impactful. And I read it to her. And right when I was finished, she said, Deja, you need to share that with people. Like, you need to make an Instagram right now. You need to post it. You need to share it because someone needs to hear it. And sometimes that's all it takes, is like one person speaking that truth into you to be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And I kid you not, the next day I made the Instagram for Ebb and Flow and I posted exactly what I had written in that journal. And, now here we are like 2 years later and all of this beauty has come out of it. So it's crazy.
That is so wonderful. And I love it because I definitely wanted to hear how you came to, create Ebb and Flow. And, I love speaking to artists. In my opinion, everyone in life is an artist, because whether you know it or not, you're creating your life. Right.
Absolutely.
And that's actually something I really want to dive into with you as well, because, I love that you just went for it. Did you have any fear because obviously anytime you're putting your work out there, your heart out there, you stand the chance of facing some kind of rejection. And that's, we know that that's where most people hold back and don't go forward. So can you talk about that piece?
Absolutely. So I think that there's 2 levels of fear. So I think the first level of fear that I had to break through was the fear of judgment. So me putting my work out there and people criticizing it or thinking, oh, this is lame or cringy or this or that. So that was tough, definitely. But at the same time, as I gained confidence through it little by little. I remember I would get like a little negative comment, and at first it would really bother me. But then as time went on, I look at it as, sure, someone is allowed to disagree with what I write. I think I gave myself, once I was just able to accept the fact that people might disagree with my work, it allowed me to take comments or any type of rejection a lot smoother, because I was like, you know what, that's okay. We all have different experiences and not every single person is going to agree with my work. And so as time went on, the fear of judgment really decreased. But the next fear, which I think is the greatest fear, is that when I put out my work, it was for the first time people really seeing me for who I was. Because from day to day, you can put on any type of facade, you can act how you want to act, you can talk how you want to talk. But with art, I think art is the most vulnerable expression and the truest expression of ourselves. So me putting my words out there, it was like, oh my gosh, like, holy shit, people are going to know all these things about me. And especially after I put out my book, I literally wanted to hibernate. I didn't want to talk to anyone about it. It was so scary. And so I think that was the biggest fear-based thing, is people seeing me truly for the first time. But of course, even now there's certain things that I write in my book that I won't necessarily post on social media, because I think that there's an intimacy of reading my book that you may not get from my Instagram. And I like to keep it that way.
I love that. And I fully understand that. But I agree with you that also, as an artist, when you are putting your work out there, you're vulnerable. And especially when it is your, deeper layers of who you are. So I'll give you this to relate to. It's like, in my social, it's always been lifestyle, career. I spent a large part of my career life as a celebrity makeup artist. So when I got on Instagram, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing that life, and also my lifestyle, which is, holistic, high performance living at the beach, all that stuff. When I launched, yeah, thank you. When I launched Back Up Beauty, when I launched the podcast, now I'm sharing just who I am, right? And obviously guests and all that, but it was this different kind of angle of me sharing, myself. And there is vulnerability in that, and just allowing people to see more. And especially if you're someone who's not motivated by being seen necessarily, because there's a lot of people, who are like, and that's cool. Like you have an edge in this space.
Yeah.
Some of my, so
Definitely.
it's, yeah. Right. And, one thing that I really love about you, and just, learning more about you, is that, and I think this really plays into your writing, and I'd love for you to talk about this, but you have a degree in psychology, which I love. It's one of my favorite arenas to live in: psychology, philosophy, neuroscience. And so like a lot of, when I take you in and your wisdom, I'm definitely hearing and feeling life wisdom, but I'm also capturing, just because I'm versed in the space, just your, what you've gained from deep diving into psychology. And I think there's so much value in that. I love, love, love. We talked about this offline. I love your duality though. I love how you are. In fact, I have to read this, and it's in the intro, the private intro, but I'm going to read just the back, if you're okay with that.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and heads up, I do want to pull on some poetry and have you unpack it.
Of course.
DEJA RAE is a writer, explorer, and a dreamer. Since she was young, her inquisitive mind has led her on a perpetual journey towards enlightenment and self-discovery. Both introspective and analytical, DEJA RAE's work focuses on identifying patterns in the world and articulating shared human emotions. With a bachelor's degree in psychology and an ongoing master's degree in international development, DEJA RAE hopes to use her education and creative skills to empower others to chase after their most authentic selves. Now, we've been getting to know each other like a little bit, but can you understand how you're literally speaking to my core?
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. I know, we're like kindred spirits.
Literally, truly. My core purpose and like what I do is help individuals around the world. Specifically my coaching, it's women, to live from their most authentic self, because, and I would love for you to unpack this. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. I just don't believe, DEJA, that it's possible to cultivate a life of true fulfillment if you're not truly expressing yourself, if you're not truly living your true self. And I love that not only is that a focus for you, but I love that you, all these labels and boxes of you need to be this one thing, that you destroy that box, you blur those lines. And there's so much value in that too. So my girl, please talk about that.
I love that you brought that up, because this is a conversation I had a long time ago with a friend of, I feel like just in society in general, we're raised to have to fit into boxes. Okay, what's your race? What's your religion? What is your major in college? It's always one thing. And so typically when we grow up, and it might even be on a subconscious level, we think that we have to have one type of career, or we have to be one type of person. And I think so much of finding ourselves is breaking out of that box and those confines, because I always thought of myself as more analytical. I always felt this creative passion literally boiling inside of me. I would feel like, oh, I want to express something, but I don't know how. And so finally, when I was really starting to explore myself, that creativity poured out of me into ebb and flow. And I started finding so many different pieces of myself that I didn't know. I'm from California, so I love the beach. But right now I'm in New York City and I'm in, the city. Oh, but I'm a data analyst, but then I also love poetry and I love psychology and science, but I'm also so spiritual and grounded in my spirituality. And so I think, like you said, that duality is so important, because I think everything in life is a balance. And so being able to balance different sides of ourselves is just authentic, and it makes us who we are. And I think I've just found so many different pieces of myself, and that is so beautiful, because the more we peer into that, the more that we can find.
I mean, that's so good. It's so legit. It's so,
Yeah.
and to me, it's very, these are thought seeds that are very important. And I'm so grateful to have a podcast so that I can bring incredible humans on like you who can put these thought seeds, who can put these thought seeds out in the world, because there's just too much, there's a lot of limitations, limiting beliefs, and there's a lot of fear around, trying, even just expressing trying what you really want to do, trying what you really want to, pursue, saying yes to something you really want to say yes to. And for, you know what I mean? Or the reverse, right? And so again, you're just a real life example of someone who puts the fear in the back pocket and bets on themselves. Like, it's like, I'm going forward as me, and I'm going to share what's in my heart. And I don't need to, whatever you want to label me as, go for it. Cause I'm infinite in my, and actually, like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, because I really believe that in life, we are here to evolve. That is life itself. And we are integrated, whether you're conscious of it or not. And hopefully you get to that place where you're conscious of integration. And when you do get to that place, you understand that your purpose is not to fit in this box. It's ultimately, whether it's career, whether it's, expressions of creativity in some kind of hobby or whatever kind of way, like, you are supposed to evolve. That is what we do in life.
Exactly. I love that you said that. And I absolutely agree. I think so much. First is, I think we have so many purposes. And so I think when we put so much pressure on, oh, I have to find this one big purpose, and not to say that that's not important, but also I think a big thing of discovering different pieces of ourselves is not putting so much pressure on ourselves. So, for example, when I started writing and I started my poetry account, it was also at the beginning of the pandemic. So I had so much free time. And I remember thinking when I started it, my intention was never, oh, I want to gain a bunch of followers. I want to build this platform. I want to publish a book. I want to do this. It was never that. It was truthfully just, hey, like, if my writing can impact one person, I think that's beautiful. And that makes the vulnerability and the fear totally worth it. And so I think so much what I would tell people when they're starting out a new project and they feel fearful about it is just to take away all the pressure. Even if it doesn't work out, you tried, and that is so beautiful. And through that, even if you fail, you're going to find something else. There's purpose in every single thing that we do, even the things that we can't consciously see. We might look back 10 years and be like, oh, I understand why that happened at that point. And so I think with writing, especially me moving forward through it and finding myself through different avenues, it was just like, you know what, I'm just going to release all the pressure. And same thing when it came to publishing my book. And of course, this ebbs and flows. I had feelings of like, oh my God, but what if it doesn't sell? What if no one likes it? But I had to always ground myself back in truth and say, that's not why you're putting out your book. It's not to gain money. It's not to gain fame. It's not to do any of this. It's to express yourself and put your art out into the world. And so every time I found myself getting distracted by all of these material things, I would just ground myself back into that truth. And then all of a sudden, all the pressure would go away. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Who cares? Like, who really cares? If I put out this book and beautiful things come of it in my own life, and my confidence builds, that's all that matters. That's really all that matters, in my opinion.
In my opinion too, I love it.
Yeah.
And I want to say, like, I feel like you have a real connection to your work. Like you care about, you love your work. And it's
Yeah.
like, that's so important, right? Like if you think of Instagram, if you're just putting out things for what you think, I mean, I get it, serve your community. I have a community and I definitely create posts for them, but I can stand in everything that I share with absolute love for it of my own. So whether it gets all the engagement or not, I love it. I believe in it. And that's why I shared it. And I feel that in your writing and what you share. That's
Absolutely
important, right?
Of course. And I think so much of that, my writing is a reflection of who I am. And so for me, I I don't just put anything out into the world, because I want to make sure that this is like truth. And my writing, like I said earlier, it's a very spiritual experience for me. And I think that my writing is a reflection of divine truth. And I always speak on that. So for me, it's like, I just feel like I'm a vessel. And so it's really, really important for me to put out work that I believe is true. I'm not just going to write something out of anger or out of frustration and then put it out into the world, because I don't feel like that's true. And to also, it could have this collateral effect, negative effect on other people. And so I approach my work with a lot of integrity. Definitely. I think it's really, it's not just writing to me. It's wisdom. It's things that I want to pass on, that I want to be a reflection of light and love. And yeah.
Oh yeah. And you're doing it. And I love that, because I feel it's the same when I write, I channel. And when I meditate, I have a whole relationship with my muse. My audience knows it's essentially like my fullest realized self, right? She's my North Star. She's my best friend. And, she said to me, she's like, you're a messenger, and you're here to carry the messages forward. And so when you think about like, and in my journal, it's really similar. You think about, and I say this so humbly, but in truth, like, it's very Marcus Aurelius. It's very Bruce Lee. It's process and perspective on life and self, right? And, I feel that is literally in your book. And we're going to dive into that right now. Because I have there's so many, there's like, it's like, for those of you watching, it's so amazing. But, I love how in your writing, I feel you talking with yourself, from yourself, but also for us. It's this whole, it's a very dimensional experience. It's so good. So I'm going to open up to some, there's so many, girl. I mean, the seasons alone, I'm just going to read that out, because I think it's beautiful. First of all, that you framed it as seasons, lonely, broken, realizations, decisions, empathy, letting go, self-love, trust, and final thoughts. And the reason why I really wanted to share that in this episode is because, first of all, I want everyone buying your book. Like, it's so beautiful. And anyone who's tuned into me, honestly, will likely just like hold this like every day open to any page and take from it. Because they're interested in, all the things that we're talking about. And that's in your beautiful book. Before I move into a poem, is there anything that you want to share on just that process of like coming to your seasons and these specific sections?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's funny, for a long time, writing the book was the easy part. Organizing the book took me so long, because I wanted it to really, I wanted it to be perfect, honestly. And of course, nothing is perfect, but I wanted it to be perfect in my eyes. I wanted it to be something where I looked at it and I was like, yes, this makes like sense to me. And at first I was thinking, maybe I should put it into themes, or I was like, or should I tell a story? And then I was like, seasons, because seasons, it's a theme and it's a story all combined into one. And so the seasons for me, it was tough, especially the early seasons. It was me reliving a lot of hard stuff that I went through. But as you read through the seasons, you can see how, even though it's ebbing and flowing, I'm also growing, and I'm getting stronger and wiser and building. And then towards the end, it really leaves on this note of like, all right, I'm going for it. And was kind of the analogy of me finally publishing this book. So it took you on a story throughout my life, pretty much.
It's so special. I love that.
Thank
And
you.
thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Okay. Oh my goodness. So I'm kind of going to go all over the place if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. I love it. I love hearing like people's favorites because honestly, they're so different. And I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, just all of them are so rich. Okay. Let me see which one do I want to start on also. Hold on. Let me see. Oh my goodness. Because I have notes over here on my computer as well. Oh, okay. Let's start with this one. Do not stay in spaces that are not conducive to your growth. Do not shrink your capacity to love for those that do not have the capacity to love you. Do not compromise your standards of connection only to grasp at scraps of affection. Never again will you convince others of your worth. Never again will you betray yourself. Oh, never again will you beg for love. DEJA, before you,
I just got chills.
I have them too. And I'm always talking about being loyal to your authentic self. So when you said never again will you betray yourself, girl, that shit, like, please unpack that. It's so good.
Yes. Oh, that was many, many years of learning. Like I said earlier, I'm a lover and I'm sensitive, but part of me being a lover was also wanting to be a fixer and bringing a lot of people into my life that I saw potential in, but they just weren't there yet. And when I was doing that, I realized later on that I was betraying myself. I was betraying my needs. I was betraying the level of love that I really wanted just because I wanted love. It was like I was compromising though the level and the type of love that I wanted. And so that poem actually, that's going to be in my next book. And I was having a rough day that day, and I had this realization again, kind of going through a similar situation like that. And I was like, you know what? Never again am I going to put myself through that, because I know what I deserve and I know what I want. And when we compromise and when we settle, not only are we cheating ourselves of our potential, but we're betraying ourselves. We're betraying our authentic self. And when we go to bed at night, you know how you feel deep down. And as much as you want to run away from that truth, it's going to keep bubbling up. It's going to keep coming up. And so it was me finally putting the truth into words of never again, never again.
It's so beautiful and so important, because we know that, and I've been in that position, like in my 30s, I definitely, I went through that. And when you make up your mind and you really decide that you're not going to settle for scraps. I mean, it changes everything. It's actually a perfect segue into this one that also just crushes me. It just in the best of way, obviously. If we don't practice self-love, we will search for that love elsewhere. We will assume that the love we crave is in the hands of another human. We will betray ourselves, put others on a pedestal, and lower our self-worth just to grasp at scraps of affection. Sweet friend, the love you are looking for is inside of you. Keep digging. The end piece also just like, oh, keep digging.
Oh, yes. What's so funny is that my words totally hold me accountable too, because I'll be in a season where I'm like super not aligned, or I'm lonely, or I'm feeling this, or feeling that. And then I reread my words and I'm like, oh, keep digging. Like, it's fine. You're going to be fine. And so even you just reading that to me right now, it was really, really magical, because I have to be reminded as well. I definitely do. It ebbs and flows.
It does. And I love that you say that. I mean, it's so powerful, because I always say, like, there's no period at the end of self-love. There's no period at the end of self-confidence or self-trust. Again, topics like self-awareness, self-connection. It's like self-mastery, the arena of my coaching, this is a life game. And you are constantly going to be invited to invest, to fortify these containers, these pillars, these attributes, these frequencies, all of the above, right? And so I love, again, and because I speak about the power of writing a lot, like journaling specifically. And so for you to say that, my writing holds me accountable, that is, first of all, that's proven in science, like there's research that's done on that, but also I know that to be the case in my own life, like you're affirming yourself. So, while it is this beautiful, very potent and powerful expression of your heart, your art, it is also, how I put it, it's words are very, they're alchemy. You're casting a spell.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
It's right.
You gotta put that in your book. That's beautiful.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it is. Yeah,
Yes.
no, it's the whole, yeah. I mean, wait till you see this journal because it's a full mystical experience, but it is that, like your inner dialogue. So dialogue, period, external, inner, written, all of it. It's all shaping how you feel about you. It's shaping your reality from my perspective. So, when we really become, and it's not for everybody, this is just what I've learned about life, right? When that becomes like a truth, you become a lot more responsible about, how you're communicating with yourself, with others, like because the value of your words, for me, words are a spell, So what kind of spell are you casting?
Exactly. Oh, 100%. And what's so funny is that when I was putting together my book, I was relearning every single thing that I've ever written because I was going through the editing process. And so I was like, fine tuning every single word and phrase. And that was probably one of the biggest periods of growth in my life because I was digesting so much word alchemy, as you would like to say. It was just like over and over. And it was this very spiritual experience. Like I say, I think writing is a very, very just spiritual experience in general. Like you said, it's like magic. These words come to life. And the way that I write too, we talked about this offline, but I don't just ever sit down. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to write. It's always, I'll be listening to a podcast or doing something throughout the day or in a deep moment of thought. And I have this like revelation, this download. And I'm like, oh my God, I need to write this down. I need to write this down. And I'm getting my notepad out, I'm getting my journal out, and I write it down. And then later on, I'll package it before I put it out into the world. But exactly, it comes from these moments of authenticity and these moments of alignment where you have this like divine revelation and you're like, oh my goodness, this is truth. This is truth. And it's so important that we write in those moments because when we go from day to day and we're distracted by everything else in our lives, we forget about these truths and we become unanchored in the truths. And so when we have these words to reference, it brings us back down and it anchors us back. And it's this continual process of going out into the world and being like, oh my God, what's going on? And then retreating back into my own words and finding comfort and solace in them. And over again, back and forth.
It's so powerful and so true. And I know this to be the truth in my own life as well. And I just, it's so special because you think like, look, to our audience, it's like, you don't have to write a book. You don't have to do, but the power of just that form of communication, what it does, that how it creates a connection with yourself, like such that, what you're saying is like, you have these anchoring truths because it's true, DEJA, like, we're life is coming at us and we're going at life, right? So there's just a lot happening every day. And that's my opinion. And if we don't get into this connection with ourselves to cultivate these, anchoring truths, these wisdoms that are really going to help us stay rooted in self and essentially like our highest self, to stay on our highest path. Well, that's where it gets really, really, that's where like, there's different degrees and different kind of challenge in my world is like an opportunity. It's like, I have respect for my battles. I'm worthy of them. But it's so, because I always talk about like, you can't just focus on like, I'm worthy of the victory. It's like, well, do you feel worthy of the battle? because even if it's like a self inner critic battle, if it's a physical battle, if it's a financial, whatever it is, there's a battle on the way there to that victory that you are worthy of, but you got to feel worthy of the entire process. Right. And as we are moving through life, I feel like, you know, you're taking punches and
oh yeah. Oh,
and those
yeah.
truths help you. They help you to like reset, to recalibrate, to hold grace and compassion for yourself, and to keep you focused in the direction that, you know, feels most aligned and in integrity for you. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm
Absolutely.
taking from you.
Oh, 100%. I mean, there's so much to say about that. And so what's funny is that, I mean, it's actually not funny. It was the hardest year of my life. When I moved to New York, the year leading up to me publishing this book was the hardest year of my life. I had moved from California to New York, so across the country. I had no friends, I had no family here. I'd started a master's program that was really intimidating. I had crazy imposter syndrome and I was lonely. I was going through it. I had no job. I couldn't find a job. I remember I had applied for probably over 100 jobs, didn't even get an interview. So this was like me starting to doubt my self-confidence. And there was so much going on, impact within that year. And I remember having this moment of like, okay, you know what, Deja, like if you can't love yourself right now, then you're still not going to love yourself when you have all of these things. If you're going to define your self-worth off of whether you have a job or friends or a career or money, then that's not real self-love. That's not self-love that's rooted in who you are. And so during that journey, that fight with the world, kind of how you're speaking about, I had to really learn how to love myself in the darkest moments of my life when I had absolutely nothing. And so now I'm less fearful of what's to come because I know that my self-love is rooted in who I am. Anything can get taken away. My book contract can get taken away. My job, I could get fired, but that's not going to change how I feel about myself. And so those words, that's kind of like my words that I write, that's like my self-love. That's my physical expression of the self-love that I hold for myself.
Girl, my whole community is like, I totally get it. I see it, Rox. Okay, give me the book. Because this is like, you know, everything comes back to yourself. I always say like your career, your home, your relationship, those things don't make you you. You make those things. So chase the version of you that you want to live from, that you want to express yourself. Do you have a relationship with this becoming? We are always becoming, right? But like, can you get into this relationship with your becoming such that, you know, that is your ultimate vision and focus? Because in my own life, just using myself as an example, there's so many things that I haven't actualized yet that I'm in the process of actualizing. When we think about like, whether it's material, career, all the things, right? My books, like all the things. I don't get up every day. Yes, I do like the actual work to help bring those things to come into fruition. But what I'm focused on is the woman who's already done it all. And I think from her perspective, how does she handle this challenge? How does she move through this situation, et cetera, right? Like, and, you know, I love obviously everything that you just shared, because it's exactly that. It's exactly what you said. If you can love yourself, like you cultivate true self-love, like not accolades and affirmation or, you know, validation from others, but that's all great. That's important. That has a place. But if you can't cultivate that connection, that love, that self-worth from within, and you're so reliant on that, all those things, that's very dangerous, because at any given moment in life, anything can change on the external, and those things can go away. I mean, 2020 showed that in a very,
very bold, real way.
A very bold statement. Yes. And if you haven't generated that, ultimately, you think about like it's security within yourself, then you're in trouble. But if you can cultivate that security and that connection and that love, especially at times when shit is just hard, it's only up from there. You're fucking winning in life.
Exactly. Yeah. I love that I actually just wrote something the other day that was talking about that of when we when we are so fearful to let things go, it's because we fear that good things can't happen again. And I talk about how good things are actually abundant, and letting go and not being so scared to be alone or to not have a job. Those are all just, those are the benefits, the many benefits of self-love. It's just less fear of how life is going to treat you, because you know that no matter what happens, that you're still going to be aligned. You're still going to know yourself. You're still going to have yourself. And having that feeling, because that's a feeling I didn't always have, especially when I was younger, I was very fearful. The way I grew up, it was very scarcity mindset, and especially in relationships, fearing, oh, what if this person doesn't love me, or what if this happens, or what if that happens? And it was like this constant state of anxiety. But now it's so different. It's so hard to like actually express, but I have this feeling of whenever I get into this fear moment of, okay, what if this opportunity or if this person leaves me, I think about it. I'm like, I still have myself, and I have this like warm presence all over my body, because I know that as long as I have myself, I am going to be absolutely okay. And that is the most comforting position I think you could ever really be in, truthfully.
I agree, sister. Literally, like, it's because, newsflash, as long as you're on this planet, you're going to be facing challenges.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't think it gets easier. I do believe that when you cultivate this kind of relationship that we're talking about with yourself, you just move through challenges differently. Any challenge, and because you're never alone. You're always with you. I say it like when I go into the arena, right? This is my language. If like I'm going into battle, like I'm going arm in arm with this self that we're talking about. And I know that I got my back. So it's just, this is why my thought leadership, my coaching, my writing, everything is centered around what I call like these inside out empowerment tools, because they help you to not only discover, connect, and own your authentic self, but to actually move through life in, what's the word? Like entrainment, like as essentially to move through life as your fucking true self. Right.
Yes.
And it just, there's a level of love that no matter who's loving you or not loving you, or what's not coming to you or what's coming to you, there's a sense of fulfillment that, and I know, and this is also why I'm so proud to have you on the podcast, because girl, I mark my word, and to everyone watching and listening, you have a massive future in front of you. I have chills. I'm totally channeling your voice. Is absolutely so significant, so important. It makes me want to cry. It's so like,
it makes me want to cry.
It's like so fucking real. But it's like, I'm proud. Like I'm so honored to have you, here. And I want to have many more conversations. I'm going to start to kind of wrap us out. And there's some, things that I'd like to do with my guests as I wrap out. But yeah, Deja, like, thank you for betting on yourself, and, for choosing your authentic self, and to be, creating, and ultimately you're contributing, because we're all like, everything affects everything. Right. And so everyone is benefiting, and will furthermore be benefiting as you can carry on into your life, and, keep putting yourself out there in such a powerful and potent way. So my goodness, I'm just in deep gratitude.
Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you. This whole experience has just been, challenging, but in the best way. And I've learned most of all of just falling in love with the process. I think that's so important. Of, everything will come. The money will come. The whatever you're trying to manifest, it's going to come. But don't focus so much on that. Just fall in love with the process of the everyday growths and the everyday little wins. And that's something I'm really learning right now, and probably what I'll take away most from this whole journey. But thank you so much for saying that. It feels really good. And it's really crazy to see, what finding myself and putting myself first has come. So many beautiful things have come to fruition after that.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, again, it's like your proof, and we need, think about if more people in the world were taking this kind of like chance on themselves, betting on themselves, like really just like, I talk about this a lot, but self-acceptance versus self-ownership. Like, yeah, you know what? Self-acceptance is absolutely important. It's how I frame it. It's like the entry point, right? It's like level one. Level pro is fucking self-ownership. You're not just accepting yourself, you own who you are. And that is the frequency that you're putting out in the world. And sometimes you have, you know, again, it's like the entry point. Like first, maybe you're going to be in this place where I'm just accepting this is me or whatever. But when you start to hone in and you really create this relationship with yourself, you know, you get to this place, hopefully, where you're unapologetic. This is who I fucking am, and this is how we're doing it. So, you know, like me or not, like I'm showing up as me. So I like to ask my guests this question. Before I even ask this question, is there anything that you want to live in this conversation that we haven't addressed yet? And no pressure, because we've talked about a lot of beautiful things, but if there's anything that you want to live in here, please share.
Of course. I would say, and this is a little, I guess, hint to my next book, but just hold space for yourself. And whatever that means for you in that season of life, whatever season that you're in, make sure to always hold space for yourself, whatever that may be, and however that may manifest.
I love it. That's beautiful. We're definitely bringing you back on when your next book comes out. So
I would love to.
Yes. And so the question that I like to ask my guests is, if you had, and maybe you actually just answered it, but if you had a magic wand and you could give the masses one positive habit that would have a large ripple effect on their life, what would it be and why?
Oh, wow. I love that question. Oh, one habit. I know this one sounds so minuscule, but I am going to stand by this. Making your bed in the morning. I don't know why, but whenever I make my bed in the morning, I have a more productive day. Doing those little habits of discipline, it bleeds into every other piece of your life. And so if you want to become more disciplined, start with the small things. You know, some people are like, I'm going to go to the gym 7 days a week or 5 days a week. And that's a great goal to have, but start with the little things. Make your bed in the morning. Make sure you're drinking enough water. Very, very small things turn into the big things. So the small thing is make your bed, but the big thing is you're going to do whatever you want.
It's perfect, girl. I always say inches make the mile. So that's exactly how you cultivate. How do you get to lifestyle? Well, you have to have the behaviors that build the habits. And it's not a, you know, big move. It's the small incremental moves that build the big picture. So, and I'm always talking about discipline. We had another incredible writer and just alchemist on the podcast recently who his answer was discipline. So it was like in the same, because it helps everything, right?
It's so absolutely true. And I say make your bed specifically because I personally hate making my bed. I have a bed that touches 3 walls, so it's actually a nightmare to make it. So it's like, if I could do that one little annoying thing in the morning that I'm absolutely dreading, I could probably do the next annoying thing that is annoying and I'm dreading.
Yes. You start with a win. I love it.
Yes.
So good. Okay. So the next part to just wrap this incredible conversation out is I'm going to share some rapid fire words. So I'm rapid as I deliver them, but you do not have to give me one word or be rapid back. Like whatever comes top of mind, top of heart, when you hear and take in these words, that's what I would like you to share.
Okay. I'm excited. I've never done this before.
Okay. Oh, and I'm so excited specifically with your mind and heart. Okay. First word is love.
Self.
So
am I supposed to say a word or more? Is a word fine?
No, you could totally elaborate, or you can drop it on a word. Yeah, it's perfect.
I like self. That's the first word that came to my head.
It's perfect. Hard stop. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Next word is fear.
Enjoying the fear, embracing the fear.
I love it. Next word is challenge.
Challenge. Breakthrough.
Love it. Curiosity.
I know everyone. I'm like,
So good.
I really love it. Curiosity, authenticity. Out of curiosity comes authenticity.
Oh, that's so good. There's some kind of poem. There's something in there for you. That was so good. Oh my goodness. And I'm a logophile, a lover of words, and I know you are too. So it is, that's why I was excited to have this moment with you. Cause I'm like, how is she going to approach this? The next word is passion.
Alignment, being aligned with yourself, I think is when you feel the greatest passion is when something feels aligned with you, whether that's an experience or a person, when you can see someone eye to eye and it's just true and in alignment. That's where I think the deepest passion comes from.
I love that. Yeah. I feel that in your work, and you're definitely in alignment channeling your work. Yeah. So it's perfect. Okay. Couple more. This is one of my favorite words ever. Resilience.
Finding yourself, because I think every single time that you're called to be resilient, you find yourself all over again and more pieces of yourself.
So good.
This is kind of fun.
I love it. So good. It's so beautiful. Okay, the final word is excellence.
This one might be controversial, but I'm going to say failure, because I think the more you fail, the more, I think excellence is just very subjective. So I think failure helps us always feel excellent, even when life may not deem us as excellent, or others might not deem us as excellent. The more that we can fail and be okay with that failure, the more excellent we feel.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness, DEJA, thank you so much. Now, please, everything is in the show notes. Where do our listeners and our viewers stay connected to you? Obviously your book is everywhere, right? For anybody to buy. Okay.
Yes. So my book is on Amazon. It's called Ebb and Flow. And on Instagram, I'm at Ebb and Flow Poetry. And same thing on TikTok at Ebb and Flow Poetry. I'm not that good at TikTok, but I'm trying.
It's a job for sure.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's just so much effort. I don't have the capacity for it right now, but I love it. I do love it. I love the idea of it.
Well, I am so grateful again that we are connected, and I am so here in support of you. I think you are just a brilliant woman. I cannot wait for your next book. And again, like I said, I'm totally bringing you back on the show. There are just so many more conversations to have with you. These are my favorite. They're just deep, rich, meaningful, and they have a large ripple effect. So my girl, you just keep being you. And I'll just keep grateful for that.
Thank you. Yes. And thank you so much for having me. This was so enjoyable and so expansive. So thank you.
You're so welcome. All right, you guys, we'll catch you later.
Thanks so much for tuning into this episode, you guys. If you loved it, please share it on your social. Throw it up on your Instagram stories and tag me. I'm at Black Belt Beauty. I am also at Roxy Look, ROXYLOOK. I love connecting with you guys. This is a conversation that I want to just continue growing with you guys. So if you feel inspired to hit me up, do so in that space. I always enjoy hearing from you. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so by rating it and reviewing it via iTunes. It's such supportive help, you guys. It really helps the visibility of this podcast. So I appreciate and thank you in advance for doing that. And on that note, you guys, I'm signing off with all my love and always looking forward to catching you on the next.